Jessica Miller gripped the steering wheel, her hands trembling, while her two young children huddled in the back seat, half asleep and unaware of the danger racing toward them. One wrong move, one moment of panic, could turn this midnight escape into a tragedy. The street was quiet, the kind of silence that only comes after midnight when most houses are dark and the world seems to pause. But on one driveway, something unusual was happening. A car door slammed, loud enough to echo in the still night. Inside the vehicle, a woman gripped the steering wheel tightly, her breath unsteady, her mind clouded by the alcohol she had been drinking for hours. Behind her, in the back seat, herded children sat half asleep, wearing pajamas and clutching small blankets they had dragged from their beds. The engine roared to life, headlights cutting through the darkness, and slowly the car pulled out into the street. At first glance, it might have looked like any late-night drive, but the details told a different story. The trunk was half-packed with clothes stuffed hastily into bags, as if she hadn't decided what was necessary or didn't care. A teddy bear was crammed between the suitcases, a small reminder that this wasn't just any road trip. Her gas tank was barely above empty, yet she drove as though she couldn't afford to stop, as if she had to leave that very moment no matter what. The neighborhood was asleep, but a single porch light flicked on down the block. A neighbor, curious about the sound, peeked through blinds just in time to see the car speeding away. The sight of children in the back startled them, but by the time they processed it, the car was already disappearing into the night. It would be the last calm moment before chaos followed. The woman's hands trembled on the wheel, not from fear but from intoxication. She had been drinking heavily that evening, using alcohol to drown out a reality she couldn't face. The thought of losing her children had consumed her for weeks, each day adding more weight until she finally snapped. Tonight, she made her decision. She wasn't going to let anyone take them away. In her mind, this was an escape, a chance to protect her children from a system she believed was against her. But the haze of alcohol twisted her plan into something reckless and dangerous. The children in the back seat didn't fully understand what was happening. One of them asked earlier why they had to leave so late, but their mother had ignored the question, too busy trying to gather her things. Now they leaned against the seats, tired eyes blinking at the blur of streetlights as the car picked up speed. They trusted her because she was their mother, unaware of the danger building with every mile. As the car reached the edge of town, the streets grew darker, emptier, and more threatening. She pressed the accelerator harder, as though distance could erase her problems. But what she didn't realize was that her escape had already left traces behind. Neighbors who had seen the car leaving would later remember the oddness of the scene. A woman, clearly unstable, driving away at an hour when nothing good ever happens, with children who should have been safely in bed. The night that began in silence had now set the stage for a chain of events that could not be undone. The car moved further down the highway, its tires humming against the asphalt, weaving from side to side like a vessel caught in strong winds. The mother's vision blurred each time she blinked, but she kept pressing the gas pedal as though speed alone would shield her from consequences. Every mile marker she passed seemed to convince her she was farther away from the world she wanted to escape. Yet her erratic driving was drawing attention she could not afford. The first sign of danger came when she swerved into the opposite lane without warning. A delivery driver on his early morning route slammed his brakes, narrowly avoiding a head-on collision. Heart-pounding, he watched in his rear-view mirror as the car swerved back across the center line. It didn't take him long to reach for his phone and dial 911, his voice urgent as he described what he had seen. A reckless driver, children visible in the backseat, and a vehicle that looked one mistake away from disaster. The call was logged into the dispatch system, and within minutes, more reports started coming in. Drivers traveling along the same stretch of highway described a car that cut them off, nearly ran a stoplight, and at one point drove several minutes without headlights. Each description matched the same vehicle, and each new report painted a darker picture of what was happening. Police units were alerted, patrol cars set up near possible exits, but the mother kept pushing forward, unaware that she was becoming the center of a spreading alarm. Inside the car, the children clutched their blankets tighter each time the vehicle jerked sharply. The younger one tried to close their eyes, as if sleep could make the ride feel safer, while the older child stared out the window, watching the blur of passing signs and flickering street lights. They could sense something wasn't right, but they had no power to stop it. To them, the car had become a cage on wheels, moving faster and faster into uncertainty. The mother's grip on the steering wheel tightened, her knuckles pale under the strain. She didn't see the danger in her movements, didn't notice how many times she drifted close to the guardrail. In her mind, she was simply outrunning a threat. But her judgment was clouded, her reactions delayed, and every wrong turn threatened to end the journey in catastrophe. Meanwhile, officers scanning the roads had little more to go on than the reports pouring in. Each time they narrowed down the location, the vehicle had already sped ahead, making pursuit feel like a chase with a ghost. Still, every witness confirmed the same disturbing detail: there were children in the back seat. That fact changed everything. What might have been treated as a routine drunk driving stop was now being handled as an emergency. The mother pressed the gas pedal harder, pushing the car faster than she ever had before. She believed the distance behind her was safety, not realizing that every reckless mile only tightened the circle around her. Patrol cars were spreading out. Alerts were being broadcast over the radio, and what she thought of as a hidden escape was quickly becoming a hunt that no amount of speed could avoid. The frantic drive had deeper roots than anyone initially realized. Investigators later pieced together the chain of events that had led to the midnight escape, and the story revealed a chilling layer beneath the chaos. Earlier that evening, social workers had arrived at the mother's home, carrying paperwork and a determination born from months of reports and complaints. There had been previous incidents, neglect, missed appointments, and alarming signs that the children were living in an unsafe environment. The visits were meant to be routine. Yet this one carried a far more serious purpose. The children were at risk of being removed from her care. When the social workers knocked on her door, they found the mother agitated, defensive, and increasingly incoherent as alcohol blurred her speech. They explained the situation clearly and calmly, emphasizing safety and the possibility of temporary foster placement. But she saw only a threat, a system poised to take her children away. In her mind, the authorities were enemies, and leaving was the only way to protect them. The rational part of her mind had been overwhelmed by panic and fear, leaving only a desperate drive to escape. As she backed out of the driveway later that night, the events of the afternoon played in her mind in a fragmented and distorted way. Every word from the social workers seemed like an accusation, every warning a personal attack. She believed that if she could get her children far enough, she could keep them safe from the consequences of her actions. The reality of the law, the danger of the road, and the risk to the children barely registered. Her focus was singular: flee, hide, and survive. The children, still unaware of the legal and social forces moving around them, felt only the anxiety and tension of the moment. They clung to each other and to their blankets, trying to make sense of the strange urgency in their mother's movements. There was fear in the small gestures they made, the tightening of their grip on the car seat, the nervous glances through the window. The mother's inability to recognize their distress added another layer of danger, as her mind was consumed entirely by her own panic. Law enforcement began to see the flight in a new light as they gathered more details. This was no ordinary case of impaired driving. It was an intentional attempt to flee with minors, which transformed every observation from a traffic violation into a potential criminal abduction. Officers adjusted their strategy, calling in additional units, preparing for roadblocks, and coordinating with neighboring jurisdictions. Each report from the highway confirmed that the vehicle continued to evade capture. Yet the motivation behind the flight now gave the pursuit a sense of urgency far beyond a typical car chase. The mother's state of mind was deteriorating. Alcohol, fear, and the mounting stress of being pursued combined into a dangerous cocktail, impairing judgment and reaction time. Every wrong turn, every erratic swerve carried greater consequence than she could comprehend. Meanwhile, the children remained trapped in the back seat, caught between the adult world of fear and authority and their own helplessness. The night's events had transformed from a domestic confrontation into a high-stakes scenario, one that could spiral into tragedy at any moment, and no one outside the car could predict how it would end. After nearly an hour of reckless driving, the mother's energy began to falter. Her vision blurred further, the alcohol and adrenaline combining to cloud her sense of distance and speed. The car swerved slightly as she navigated the empty highway, and the children in the back stirred uneasily. Sleep had been a brief escape, but the motion of the car made them restless, their small bodies shifting against the seats as the tires hummed against the asphalt. In the distance, a gas station appeared, a small rectangle of light in the darkness. She pulled in without slowing much, guided more by instinct than careful thought. The pump area was empty, and she stumbled out of the car, fumbling for her wallet and the pump handle. Her hands shook violently, and she struggled to insert the nozzle correctly. The sound of fuel hissing into the tank was steady and reassuring in a way, a small anchor in the chaos that had consumed the night. She didn't notice the unmarked police car that had quietly pulled in behind her, its presence almost invisible in the dim light. Officers watched from their vehicle, carefully monitoring her movements. They could see the children through the car windows, still dozing, their small faces pressed against the seats. The officers remained silent, letting the mother focus on her task. Any sudden movement or panic could trigger her to flee again, and with the children inside, every second was critical. Her attention was completely absorbed by the simple act of refueling, oblivious to the fact that law enforcement had closed in around her. Inside the gas station, the fluorescent lights flickered faintly, illuminating the mother's unsteady posture. She checked the surrounding area anxiously, scanning for anyone she imagined might be following. Each movement was clumsy, betraying her intoxicated state, yet there was determination in her actions. Her plan to escape had brought her to this isolated place, but it also exposed her to the very forces she had tried to outrun. The moment was suspended, a strange calm in the storm of the night. The children stirred once more, sensing a shift in the environment. Their small hands reached out, instinctively seeking comfort from each other. The mother turned her head briefly toward the back seat, just enough to see them, but she did not process the danger surrounding them. For her, this was merely a pause, a chance to refuel and continue the escape. For the officers, this was the perfect opportunity to intervene safely to prevent further risk to the children. Then, with quiet precision, law enforcement moved. Officers approached from multiple directions, keeping low and out of immediate sight. The mother finally noticed movement nearby, confusion crossing her face, but it was too late. Surrounded and outnumbered, she froze, unable to react effectively. The children remained in the car, largely unaware of the sudden escalation outside. The carefully planned chase had ended not with a dramatic crash or a frantic pursuit, but with an unexpected pause at a gas pump, a place ordinary in appearance yet extraordinary in consequence. The night that had begun with a desperate drive into the darkness now reached its critical turning point, one that would determine the safety of the children and the fate of the mother. When the officers finally moved in, the air was tense but controlled. The mother's movements were slow, uncertain, and every step revealed her impaired state. Her hands trembled as she raised them, and the fear in her eyes was unmistakable. Behind her, the children remained in the back seat, still half asleep and largely unaware of the confrontation unfolding around them. The officers maintained a careful distance, speaking in measured tones, guiding her toward compliance. The sense of danger had not vanished, but the situation was finally being contained. Inside the car, the children stirred at the sudden movement outside. One rubbed their eyes, trying to wake fully, while the other clung to a small blanket for comfort. They looked toward their mother, seeking reassurance, and for a brief moment, their connection offered a fragile sense of calm amid the chaos. The officers quickly secured the area and ensured the children were safe before moving to address the mother's condition. The smell of alcohol was overwhelming, and open containers were scattered on the floorboard, confirming suspicions about her level of intoxication. Medical personnel arrived shortly afterward to assess the children, who were shaken but unharmed physically. The officers escorted the mother to a patrol vehicle, her resistance minimal but evident in her slurred movements. The children were taken to a safe location where trained professionals could care for them and begin the process of providing stability after the night's traumatic events. The relief was palpable. The danger that had threatened to escalate on the highway was finally contained, and the immediate risk to the children had been removed. In the hours that followed, investigators pieced together the sequence of events. The chase had lasted barely an hour, yet it had left a lasting mark on everyone involved. Surveillance footage from the gas station showed the mother fumbling with the pump, oblivious to the surrounding officers. Witness statements confirmed the erratic driving and the danger posed to other motorists. The case quickly gained attention, both locally and in social media discussions, highlighting the dangers of impaired driving and the complexities of parental flight under duress. The consequences for the mother were severe. She faced charges not only for driving under the influence but also for child endangerment and attempted abduction. Legal proceedings promised lengthy deliberations, and the likelihood of imprisonment loomed large. For the children, the experience marked a painful turning point in their lives. They would remain under protective care, with social services focused on their immediate safety and long-term stability. Their mother's choices had irrevocably altered their lives, yet the intervention of law enforcement had prevented what could have been a tragic outcome. The story spread quickly throughout the community, leaving neighbors and witnesses reflecting on the fragility of life and the unexpected ways ordinary nights can erupt into crisis. What had begun as a desperate, drunken flight to escape the law had ended in rescue, a mixture of fear, relief, and the sobering reality of consequences. The children's safety became the most important outcome, a stark reminder of how quickly situations can escalate and how decisive intervention can prevent disaster. The night that began with panic and reckless driving closed with a tense resolution, one that preserved life and underscored the thin line between desperation and catastrophe.